I am the many-talented Mr. Jefferson, and this is Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors is 4 things. A new twist on an old classic, exceedingly simple, very inexpensive, and most important of all, it's fun. In my lifetime, I've seen generation upon generation of new console launches, and a lesson the big boys never seem to learn is bigger isn't always better. AAA studios always think bigger, more, and better graphics equals success. But this often leads to ballooning development costs, requiring the new game to also be the best-selling game in the series just to recoup the costs. As we have seen lately, this often comes at the cost of gameplay, i.e., that thing your game is entirely dependent on to generate the kind of engagement that will entice new customers to buy your product. Famously, Konami got tired with the costs associated with its insanely popular and successful Metal Gear franchise, and cut ties with auteur game designer Hideo Kojima, but found that the success of the franchise was largely dependent on the extreme level of attention to detail that Hideo Kojima brought to the table, along with the creativity and imagination to bring in unexpected gameplay elements like using a controller for force feedback mimicking the human heartbeat, or using that same force feedback to trick the player into believing that the controller is being psychically moved by one of the game's enemies.
I see that you enjoy Konami games. You like Castlevania, don't you?
Metal Gear Solid 5 was in part ruined due to Konami's relationship with Kojima at the time, and the next game in the franchise was a complete disaster.
Forgive me for what I'm about to do.
While it had all of the assets available to Metal Gear Solid 5 except for Hideo Kojima, it was missing any sense of inspiration or direction, and appeared to be a game that was made for no other reason than because they owned the franchise and they could. Which is, again, using the Metal Gear Solid 5 engine and its assets as a framework to create this great franchise-killing disappointment. It wasn't even the genre change from stealth action to a very popular at the time survival crafting that made the game so abysmal, as Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance itself moved from stealth to full-on over-the-top beat-em-up action to great acclaim. Even if you haven't played Revengeance, you have probably heard or seen the words "Nanomachine, son!" What does any of this have to do with Vampire Survivors, you might ask? Well, for the kiddies out there, once upon a time, there was a video game system called the Nintendo Entertainment System, which set the standard for home gaming and destroyed Atari's hold on the market. Not really. Atari crashed itself into the ground, but that's a story for another time. The NES saw the debut of many gaming franchises that have lasted to this day. But one that has died a horrible death, not to rise again, is none other than the insanely popular Castlevania franchise. The last new game in the franchise was Castlevania Grimoire of Souls, pictured here, which mashes up all of the protagonists from the franchise into a soulless, slow-paced, side-scrolling parody of the games that came before it. Why would a mobile game even have to shut down and become unavailable to play? Fuck if I know. Nothing Konami has done has made sense for years now, but it's clear they have one of the most popular IPs of all time and have no clue what to do with it. Enter Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors is very explicitly Castlevania 3, except reimagined as a top-down shooter format with zero story or dialogue, and it's absolutely brilliant. The game Bloodstained Ritual of the Night took the Castlevania Symphony of the Night formula and did everything the same, but better, which makes sense because the guy who made Symphony of the Night also made Bloodstained. Bloodstained was everything I expected it to be and more. Vampire Survivors is a completely different beast. The character models strongly resemble the old sprites from Castlevania 3, and the weapons and sub-weapons and their firing arcs and enemies are all very familiar, but it's been changed to fit a new top-down format as a tower defense game where your character is the tower. The genre has been dubbed a reverse bullet hell as enemies swarm towards you and you try to avoid and kill them without getting overwhelmed, which is made more difficult by the fact that there is no button to attack, or literally any controls beyond movement and mashing the spacebar, or clicking occasionally when you get item upgrades or treasure. That's not a mistake, not at all. There is simply no attack button because the gameplay is simplicity itself, as you only need to control your character with WASD and decide what power-ups to pick when you level up because your character auto-attacks with whatever weapons you have available. Your goal is to pick and power up the right combination of weapons to survive wave after wave of enemies, who become stronger and more plentiful as time passes. You need to duck and dodge and try to make sure enemies are in the path of your weapon arcs while trying to pick up items and experience you will need to make you stronger so you can continue to hold the line. Despite this simplicity and the fact the game is still in early access and lacking in content, it's amazingly enjoyable with a budget price tag of about $3. Vampire Survivors is a roguelike, so it has built-in replayability as every run you will be collecting coins to unlock characters or to buy persistent character buffs to make your next run easier, and collecting certain items and leveling your weapons will also unlock characters and new items to use, and surviving 30 minutes will unlock a faster and harder mode for that stage. While there are currently only 3 stages in the early access version, you can still get a load of value out of those 3 stages. The roadmap looks to include new stages, characters, and I believe new game modes. Only time will tell what this game will actually be at full release, but for now, it's off to a damn fine start. Not only does Vampire Survivors understand Castlevania better than Konami does, they understand the fans better too. To mark the 35th anniversary of Castlevania, Konami launched a brand new series of NFTs nobody wants or asked for. Vampire Survivors, on the other hand, released the 35th anniversary patch, which added in new weapon evolution for the garlic and a cheeky item called the NFT to celebrate their 35th day on Steam. These Najuda Fritada Tantos, no idea how to pronounce that, give you fire breath and is insanely useful, unlike actual NFTs, which are totally useless. And before what you ask what it is, it's an egg dish with spicy Italian pork, aka some kind of food. It probably tastes better than floor chicken. Terrible pun, great item. We're against NFT practices, if that wasn't clear, which indicates what they think of Konami's celebrating Castlevania's anniversary by whoring out the franchise instead of actually creating anything new or interesting. The Castlevania Anniversary Collection is a bare-bones, no-frills recreation of the NES and Game Boy games, along with Super Castlevania, which are actually inferior to the original games, as one Steam reviewer points out that they are just using the inferior ROM rips, and the games can even be played in an NES emulator if you just insert the INES header into the code. Everything about this collection is lazy and poorly done, and they didn't even add an exit button for PC players to quit the game. Stay classy, Konami. Vampire Survivors is a creative reimagining of a classic IP that shifts into a different genre with amazing success and is a fantastic value at $3, and continues to show that the best Castlevania games aren't even part of the franchise and aren't made by Konami anymore, and that you don't have to piss away millions of dollars on sexy graphics to make a good game. I highly recommend it, and I can't wait to see what this becomes on full release. Many thanks to Dan Cohen. I received this game as a gift and took far too long to check it out. This is one of the most wildly popular games on Steam right now, or actually, ever, as it's sitting at an unheard of 99% positive review score, when it's, and I can't stress this enough, a game I initially dismissed out of hand due to the retro graphics and low price tag, which are indicators that this was probably some terrible asset flip. I passed on it probably about 3 times before somebody else just bought it for me and said, "Here, stream this please." It's a one-man development team, and even if they were purchasing all the graphical and musical assets used in the game, the development cost for Vampire Survivors is gotta be absurdly low. Any AAA developer inherently has the issue of having to pay for all of the infrastructure and management salaries inherent to the machine. Any game they develop has to feed that machine, and while Vampire Survivors is a wild success, that just wouldn't be the case once you've considered the scale this game would have had to been, since their company has become bloated past the point where it can be successful as a game developer, so they just gave up and made pachinko machines out of their IP instead. That being said, the wild success of Vampire Survivor might prod them into making a clone, since they do own all of the original assets, but expect them to completely screw it up by trying to turn it into a free-to-play microtransaction nightmare that costs hundreds of dollars to unlock instead of $3 and you get everything. This is a product of a single person with a love of classic NES Castlevania who is only concerned with making a fun game on a tight budget with a low price. And it's a refreshing change of pace when the first concern is the fun and not the profit. This has been the many talented Mr. Jefferson. If you enjoyed this review, if you enjoyed my analysis of why Konami sucks, please like and subscribe. I stream most nights at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.